Chapter 161. The Devil's Lord 3. The Devil's Lord 3. Level up. A cheerful notification window that didn't match the current situation informed me that I had reached level 100 as a higher entity. I stood there for a while, leaving Lucifer's body floating in the air as I considered how I could have lost my life. I regained my name and my power that was tied to the battlefield, but that didn't mean I fully recovered the power of Baal. The power that had been permanently consumed in creating the battlefield was no joke. If I called myself the Demon King right now, everyone would laugh at me. However, that would be a different story if I devoured Lucifer's body. That body, which embodied a part of the heavenly spirit, wouldn't be enough to restore all of my strength instantly, but it would make me significantly stronger. I wondered what sort of taste a body full of pure divinity might have. It must be a delicacy I had never tasted before. Fate. Now? A voice filled with struggle brought me away from my thoughts. Only then did I remember others were here with me. Both Belphegor and Mireina floated in the air with a look of death about them, supported only by the mana at their feet. Even with the world exploding around them, Belphegor had succeeded in protecting himself and Mireina. Mireina, wait a moment. I will wait. Until I had almost forgotten about Mireina. My habit of letting food go to my mind had remained. With a bitter smile, I pulled Lucifer's body to me and opened my mouth wide. Hold on for another 30 seconds. It'll be over soon, I said so confidently to her. Now that I could use predation without eating it physically, I hadn't in quite some time. But such rudeness wouldn't do with Lucifer's body, the brightest star that was once my enemy. There were other reasons, of course, but that was the primary one. The other being that it would be difficult for me to deal with all that energy if I consumed it at once. I also had a desire to enjoy the delicacy I had encountered for the first time in my life seriously. I was a bit resentful that I didn't have more time to enjoy it. Thank you for this meal. His body was nonsensically hard despite him being dead. I chewed through the resistance left in his corpse, swallowing the strong magical power. It was as sweet as honey yet had the sourness of a tart fruit but the texture of meat. It had a strange feeling like I was eating meat while drinking a strong wine. Various textures and emotions hit me at once. I hadn't expected him to be sweet. Despite all the contrasting flavors, there was an odd harmony to it all. It was the best delicacy on earth, perhaps even in heaven or the underground. I was stunned but couldn't stop eating. Fate, why are you crying? Don't disturb his meal. Mireina sounded sad as she asked me, but Belphegor held her back. I didn't really know why I was crying myself. It was something I couldn't understand. As I had assured Mireina, my meal ended in 30 seconds. I regretted that fact, but I couldn't help it. I turned to Belphegor, who appeared concerned. Fate. Yes. I'm really sorry. I smiled and approached Mireina, grabbing her hand. Fate. Don't worry. Leave it to me. She regarded me with an anxious gaze, but there was also relief and joy in the corner of her eyes. Perhaps it was because I was holding her hand. I held onto it as I slowly activated my power. Her eyes widened as she recognized it, but I only smiled. Now you know. But, am I? Yes. Greed, gluttony, jealousy, and pride. Those 4 powers overflowed from my being, yet I hadn't evolved. It wasn't a matter of lack of ability, but because I wasn't digesting Lucifer's body. Lucifer couldn't be the strongest underground because he had both pride and jealousy, which were ill-fitted to each other. They could never go together. That wasn't different for me. Even the Demon King couldn't change his feelings so quickly. Greed, gluttony, and jealousy could merge together, but not pride. The moment I tried to embrace it, there would be a violent reaction. So I didn't. I had gluttony and greed, and a strong desire for what others had, but I knew well about what would hurt me. Letting your emotions and power control you, you would gain power, but what awaited you at the end was ruin. Lucifer proved it. In conclusion, the power I was raising was his power of pride. That's impossible. I was never good as he was. And that was your power originally. I have 2 things to tell you. First, this is a power that cannot be my strength. Mireina's eyes widened, and she turned away. Belphegor nodded. That's why Lucifer died in vain. I wanted fate to take pride rather than jealousy. Pride is the power that cannot be the best. Reign. Somewhere in the world, there will be something stronger than me. As the master of greed, I assure you of that. So, in order to deal with it, either I close my eyes or I exert it in a different direction. Unless you're an easy-to-understand fool like Lucifer, it can't be used. Well, that is true. Aha! As Mireina was perplexed by the discussion over her future ability, Belphegor nodded at me. An easy-to-understand fool. I remember seeing such a person recently. Is that right? Hey! That particular part of Mireina, to be able to shout so lively, might really go well with arrogance. I tapped her head lightly. It's a joke. The second thing I wanted to say. Light spewed out from both Mireina's and my bodies. She was preparing to evolve with my magic. I'm not expecting you to be strong. You've done your part. Thanks to you I was saved, and from now on it will be my fight. So I give you the power not to fight. No, I wanted you to live. I did my best to convey my honest heart to her. Her face turned red, and she shut her mouth. There's only one way to save you, and that's through evolution. It's harder to evolve now that you're a higher entity. But if you embrace Lucifer's power, it's possible. If you do well enough, you may evolve twice even. Belphegor added after the fact. I had been considering that as an option too. It was unclear if she would be able to deal with the power, but her abilities that emerged when she evolved before marked her as a superior individual. With that, you can certainly survive. I don't know how you'll change, but you can live. So live. Okay? Are you going to do this regardless of my will? Of course. Her face was still red as she digested my words before responding. Yes, then I see. After all, she was still cute. I infused Mireina with the power of pride as all of Lucifer's physical power melted into me. Two beams of light erupted from a world that wasn't lost. Mireina and I, our evolution had begun. Chapter 162. The Devil's Lord, 4. The Devil's Lord, 4. I wanted to watch Mireina's evolution, but I had no time. I experienced several violent changes when I evolved before, like when I became a higher entity, but now I was experiencing an evolution unlike that. What could I say? The trajectory I was drawing was different from my past self. I wasn't returning to the past Baal I had been, although that certainly affected me. I was the demon named Baal. After all, I had the same soul. But that was being all mixed with my powers of greed, gluttony, and jealousy. I formed a new self by blending everything I acquired with the name and power of Baal. What shouldn't be mixed was cut out, where the remaining parts were united under one strong will. The evolution took place in a realm far beyond suffering. Or to be precise, pain no longer made sense to me. The pain was nothing more than an alert of dangers to the body, but I was far beyond that. I already had a lot more clear and usable alarms to danger. My past body was completely broken, and I couldn't see it. There was just mana. Boiling mana that let me know I still existed, enough mana to break even the sky. The power of my subordinates had already been returned to them, so it was all mine. The new mana and soul mana, divided into two branches, were twisted and stretched. They moved with a terrifying momentum as they ate at each other, finally uniting together and radiating a brilliant light. Entities in the lower system had a purely physical body with little mana but eventually received more as they grew. A parent entity abandoned that body to form a body and soul purely based on mana. And now I, finding even that distinction to be burdensome, was putting all of it together. The boundary between the body and the soul was destroyed. The body was the soul and the soul was the body. Now I knew why Lucifer had tasted so sweet. He was the only complete food I've ever eaten. A soul and body united, just like me. But there was one thing that hadn't completely melted into me. That mystery stat, covered in question marks. It had always been with me under the name of luck. But perhaps it was destiny instead. I didn't know how it would affect me, so I left it unattended. But now everything else was being revealed. That question mark that still hid from me was annoying. I could tell now that I had recovered most of my memories as Baal. It was a concept. It was up to me to interpret it. That was still something missing. That power that bears the name of destiny, or perhaps it only bore that name because I named it, was still clearly hidden within me. But I didn't have the key to unlock it. The moment I thought about it, the manna that had been swirling around me stopped and began to form a shape in the air. It was me. All the powers I had devoured so far were coming together to form my image. Finally, I heard Belphegor's voice, overwhelmed by emotion, and I smiled softly. My face was already complete, and I could feel the muscles in my face moving. In a short time, when I didn't have an exact shape as a being, I felt an infinite sense of freedom and frustration. I was free, yet unable to come into contact with others without my physical form. Perhaps it was to interact with others that some beings became fixed in the form of matter. With such an irrelevant thought, I stepped into the air. For a being full of magic, it didn't matter whether there was land or air below one's feet. Baal, Fate. LV 101. Magic, 7,875. Destiny? Skill, Predation LV9, Jealousy LV9, Reaper LV9, Domination LV10, Magic LV10. Once a great symbol, the underground races grew under the name of Baal and wished to serve him. Belkatina, Belkina, and a few others all are derived from his blood and have inherited his strength. You have succeeded in reaching the root of your race, the greatest bloodline under the moon. By throwing off both falsehoods and weakness, you have gained the strength to stand at the center of a new history. But you have to hurry, as all great historical records may be erased. The hint had been around from the start. Belkina and Belkatina, beings with my name. Of course, just knowing it wouldn't have been enough. Now I had 9 levels in jealousy and predation, which were the core powers that defined me. Since greed was operating on a more fundamental level, it wasn't specified by the power of skills, but I could feel it in all my words, thoughts, and actions. Other than that, all I had left was the Reaper skill, Domination, and my magic skill. Mireina. Not yet. I don't think her evolution will end in a couple of minutes. I see. Belphegor's attitude toward Mireina was unchanged, despite her being a companion that would be around for a while, assuming we succeeded against heaven. It was all because of Mireina's origin as a descendant from the battlefield. I thought of her origins, and of Lucifer's life and death. As I did, the light surrounding Mireina began to fade gradually. I feel a little weird. Mireina absorbed the light and walked towards us. It's like there is another me inside of me. That means you're properly wielding the power. Calm your mind and control it. Okay, I can do it. HM? I felt a small sense of incongruity in her. But I wasn't sure if it was because of her violent change from her evolution, or because of the way she was speaking. Fate. Oh, it's nothing. It wasn't important. I looked up at Belphegor, calling my name and reaching out. Everything went as planned, and we prevented the destruction of the underground. I lowered my hand silently, only now realizing the change to the battlefield. Where are we now? The rookie's battlefield, of course, Master Fate? Where was it located? Only Earth, wasn't it? Yeah. Lucifer, that motherfucker. I thought I prevented the battlefield from becoming an independent world, but that was my mistake. Lucifer broke the battlefield away from Earth before anything else. It wouldn't be restored even if he gave up the power of jealousy. From now, the battlefield will return to the Earth. No, it's impossible because this world is already collapsing. Shit. What I had achieved since becoming a goblin was now pointless. All for his desire to become the creator of a new world for that crappy desire. How fleeting it was, how pathetic. He would kill Elle, the only other person he cared for, with such a desire. What would we do? Could I use my strength to restore the battlefield to its original state, and then force a connection with Earth? No. There is no way the heavens can leave this alone. We had 3 weeks originally, but now it was about 2. If I were going to fail, it would be because of heaven. Not this. What do I do? What should I do? The connection between the two worlds was broken. The battlefield would no longer be connected to the underground and would disappear within a few minutes. The underground would be gone. All the people I loved would disappear without a trace. A cold wind blew through the heart that had been enriched by evolution. My head was empty in the face of this unexpected event. Would everything end like this? To Lucifer, who had already died. Would I finally be brought to my knees? It was then. A thought came to me in a flash of light. There was a world that could be connected to the underground. Chapter 163. The Devil's Lord, 5. The Devil's Lord, 5. It was possible to connect the underground to Earth, just as the underground had been connected to the rookie's battlefield. I was in complete control of everything on Earth through my use of a legion of demons. My chain of domination had been draped across the globe. It would be possible for me to annihilate the Earth and only keep the underground. That way I could protect those I wanted to. Of course, I would have to move parts of the legion to Earth to balance things out, but that way I could directly clash with heaven. Damn it. Damn it. There was no way I could do that. Maybe it would have been possible for the pure demon Baal, but it was impossible for me. My heart was intervening with strong and diverse emotions, blocking me. When the humans waged their war, that was of their own will. I had no intention of stopping it because of that. It was their sin to bear. Similarly, I could kill humans who tried to kill me without remorse. It made my sister terribly sad, but she endured it for me. However, offering an innocent human as a sacrifice to save my own life was a completely different story. It was the same for all my companions, born as underdogs and swayed by their circumstances. The idea that any of us, survivors who struggled against their surroundings, would sacrifice others in that same situation would never be tolerated. I thought of the battlefield, of all the sins I had accumulated so far to build it, and the reason I killed Lucifer. Killing those humans who knew nothing would be no better than him or the heavens. I remembered the end of the farmer fate. His painful screams, sacrificed as a method to resurrect me. I had already committed a great sin, but I wouldn't go further and do the same as the heaven I resented so much. Is there any other way? Anything that I can do to protect everyone? I felt a dull vibration in my chest. I didn't notice it at first as I was deeply immersed in my thoughts, but it was slowly picking up in intensity. It was an old-fashioned and luxurious pocket watch. The chain was too short to wear it, but it was mine. After recovering most of my power and memories of the past, I knew it was mine. Like that. Was it such a stupid thing? I hadn't checked all the means left for me yet. I had yet to clear Zone 6, nor had I found Zone 7 again. There must be something I left in there, but I couldn't think of it, and I was groaning for a solution. There had to be secrets I had yet to grasp. This pocket watch was the thing I had yet to resolve. Surely, I could figure it out and find a way to keep everyone safe. Belphegor, by your command, Baal, the great king of demons. Belphegor knew the weight of the title Satan and would not speak it out loud. Batsigo and Gremory were too frivolous. 3 hours from now we will stop the power of the great fusion. We will have to combine the power of all demons. It will be possible in about 3 hours. They will be gathered. Perhaps the reason why the underground had yet to disappear was that its connection to the battlefield hadn't completely disappeared yet. It was only a matter of time before it did, however. It was just a stay of execution, but it gave me time to organize my thoughts and move forward. Take the army back to the underground and protect it. Earth will be safe. Fate, what about me? You are the core of the defense. Deny everything that tries to interfere with your soul. Deny the power of heaven and the great fusion. We wouldn't stand a chance without Mireina standing at the center. I can't do that. If I fail, fate will die. Yes, that's right. If Mireina's power was exhausted before I cleared the Black Palace, everyone involved with the underground would die. No, a fate more terrible than death would await us. It would be like we never existed. What if you die because of me? You can do this. I was confident in her, but I also wanted to check the incongruity I felt earlier. For just a moment, she seemed to hesitate before taking a deep breath. Confidence began to well up in her beautiful blue eyes, A change so sudden it seemed that another soul had sprung up. I can do it. A tremendous amount of mana soared in her. It was the same mana as the one who sought my life just moments ago, the power of pride. Belphegor's eyes went wide at the sight. Fate? No way? I think so. Leave it to me. I believe in you. The mana was overflowing with the momentum of an explosion. It was like Lucifer was standing before me once more. I let out a laugh. Your aptitude was good. Huh. No, please go back to the underground now. Please. Huh. Mireina opened the gate to the underground and went through, having learned how to do so from nobody but herself. Belphegor shook his head. I see. Her pride really stems from the idea that you're right. It looks that way. I nodded and sent a message to all demons on Earth to return underground. He was right. Mireina's pride stemmed from others, not herself. It was an imperfect constraint, but it was suitable to deal with pride, which was imperfect in the first place. Absolute faith that I was right was certainly arrogant. Even if I were wrong, she would trust me so far as to ignore others. It was a slightly different direction than Lucifer's power, which never recognized others. It's pathetic to see that even one's own power depends on others to manifest itself. Moreover, for a hybrid rely on the king of demons. She's a friend. There are also very few traces of elves or angels left, so let's stop talking about hybrids. My apologies. Belphegor apologized frankly, but his lips were still pouted as if he were dissatisfied. It was an odd sight for the middle-aged man. But I suppose those are the powers of a demon. I would like to see them further. Only, let's go underground quickly. As a commemoration of regaining my name and strength, I just wanted to behave according to my name after such a long time. I was afraid his relaxed tone and slow movements would increase. I'm fine, so please go underground. All right, we will be waiting for your return. He sighed and jumped into the gate I opened. He must have read the conflict I was having, but what he was worried about wouldn't happen. Now I was the only one left on the battlefield. I waited quietly in the middle of a space where not a single ray of light emanated. Fate, you have a shield. At that moment, the power of all the demons was concentrated into one place, a shield with Mireina as the center began to block out the effects of the great fusion. I stretched out the energy of predation without hesitation. A gate opened up using the remaining mana in this crumbling world. The location of the 6th district was found by the party of warriors with Salas. Who? With a deep sigh, I jumped through the gate to Salas's side. Chapter 164. Black Moon 1. Black Moon 1. It was dark and covered with the gloomy spirit of evil. Compared to the other areas of the Black Palace, it exuded strong energy and was exceptionally wide. How long do we need to do this? Until the dungeons disappear from Earth. Don't think about quitting. I could hear the voices of the self-proclaimed warriors. Among them, the only names I knew were of Lane, the leader, and Emily. But ultimately, it didn't matter what their names were. Mew. Yeah, it's a spider. Are you hungry? There'll be a bunch of monsters soon. Emily, that's the enemy. I'm going to turn him to our side. Shit. Still, it was fortunate that they recognized that Salas was an enemy, although they revealed themselves so much in front of him, showing their immaturity. I can't get in touch with them. It's natural that there is no contact. We're on a mission. What a mess. We are warriors to save mankind. If they're left alone, humanity will be annihilated. Odom, what are you talking about? Is there any reason to give our lives to save them? When we first met, they had a clear sense of purpose. However, since then, it sounded like the rest of their mindsets, except for Lane, began to change. Disconnecting them from heaven had an effect I didn't think of. I'm tired of this, Lane. Odom, you... As the tensions were rising, Emily stepped in. But we were saved by them. Shouldn't that grace be paid back? Yeah. They saved us and gave us strength. That's enough. Is that really grace? The other man, who had been listening quietly, responded coldly. What? Because we had the elves as partners, we were in danger of dying during the Great Fusion, and then they rescued us. We decided to do whatever they said. but I felt like something wasn't right. How did they save us? Where did this power come from? I can't shake those questions. Teanak. Emily's voice trembled. I was trembling as well, but for a different reason. Belphegor made it clear that during the Great Fusion, heaven chose humans with abilities and trained them. Were those humans in the same position as those who had become fallen? The connection to your partner was related to your class and ability, generally speaking. Elves outperformed humans, so only the absolute best humans were connected with them before the Great Fusion. Could they have taken those excellent candidates and turned them into warriors? The Great Fusion, was it really a supernatural phenomenon? Couldn't they have stopped it? Perhaps. What if they were the cause? Pena. Lane pulled out his sword. Teanak and Odom readied theirs as well, and Emily stood back while hugging Salas. I decided to step forward before they collided. I would appreciate it if you killed each other in your own time. Fate. I only told them my name once, but they remembered it well. I laughed as they pointed their weapons at me. Mew! Salas leaped out of Emily's arm and landed on my head. I'm in charge of this dungeon. There are only a few left on Earth, so now you can head on your own way. Why? Didn't you listen? There are only a few left. What are you up to? Emily tried to hold Lane back, but he wouldn't back down. Odom and Teanak ran in to hold him back from either side. You'll really die. This idiot. Let go. Our enemy is him. This monster who leads demons and kills humans casually. Not heaven. The moment the word heaven popped out of his mouth, the other three stiffened. It must have been an important secret to them. You're out of your mind. Lane, take it easy. Please calm down. You don't have to be so nervous. What? I created countless black mines, spreading them throughout the dungeon. I know heaven is backing you. Only something like heaven could have the capacity to do this. You knew. Look at that. He's the cause of the Great Fusion. I know it. The Great Fusion was caused by heaven to destroy the world I belong to, the underground. What? Lane's momentum stopped as he was struck speechless. Odom looked resigned, and Fennec had an odd expression on his face. Emily's face was blank. Liar. I'm not lying. Believe it or not, it's true that heaven caused it. Oh, but it's my fault that you were in danger of dying, as I created the rookie's battlefield. I drove the elves and angels into the battlefield, even knowing how catastrophic it would be. Therefore, because I couldn't repeat that terrible karma of the past, the underground and earth would never be connected. They listened quietly while I explained why I created the battlefield. But as soon as I was done, Lane's patience seemed to be at its limit. It's because of you. If you want to kill me, go ahead. I will grant you a painless death. I drew my dagger. Wait a moment, Lane. Emily finally spoke up. Isn't the direction of your anger wrong? What are you talking about? This is the guy who almost killed us. They just wanted to live. Yes, we almost died as a result, but if you kill him, then you will deserve your own anger. Lane's jaw rattled as he listened to her, his sword turning to her. It's all a lie. Heaven didn't cause it. Do you believe that he created the battlefield, but not that the heavens caused the Great Fusion? He's just mixing the truth with his lies. I understood his feelings. Had I been in the same position, I would have made the same judgment. No matter how you listen to me or act from now on, it has nothing to do with me. I have no reason to lie to you, as you can't do anything to me. At that moment, a loud bang sounded through the dungeon as it prepared to collapse. A tremendous scream filled the dungeon, that of the boss monster in Zone 6. I've got work left to do, so hurry up.
Panak, Ohtem.
Emily called their names in a cold tone of voice. The two men nodded and immediately attacked Lane. Ha! Lane hit the ground, unable to defend himself from the instantaneous attacks. He was unharmed but immobile from their abilities. Thank you for letting us know. I hate you too, but I don't want to die. Us as well. If we run away, will you leave us be? Yes. I nodded. But be on guard. If you try to block me, I will have no choice but to kill you. Don't worry. Emily nodded as if to say, Trust me. At that moment, the screams filling the dungeon faded away. The pocket watch began to vibrate, alerting me that the boss had been dealt with. Only, are you going to try to confront heaven? Yeah. But they're really amazing. Not only their number of angels, but their leader, Michael. They're not a problem. What I care about is the heavenly body itself that creates and directs them. The body? What is that? She had said she hated me but was trying to give me information. Perhaps their anger and hatred toward the heavens that used them transcended their feelings toward me. Anger and hatred. I could understand that too. They coincided with my desire to eat the heavens, burning hotter than hellfire. I slowly lifted my hand and pointed beyond the sky far above the dungeon we were in below the ground. It's definitely there. The meal prepared for me. With that, I left them. The seal of the boss of Zone 6 was released, completely freeing the seal on the pocket watch as the dungeon itself was sucked into the underground. The pocket watch began to emit a dark light, opening a gate before me. A gate to the Black Palace 7th District. Destiny, the pocket watch, the power I had yet to find, and the Black Palace. I stepped forward, believing that there would be a way to overcome this situation where I was heading. Salas cried cheerfully in the dark beyond the gate. Chapter 165. Black Moon 2. Black Moon 2. Beyond the gate was the first floor of Black Palace's District 7, which was more or less my hometown now. It was a famous dungeon, mainly because of me, but all humans who ran around here were already dead. The dungeon itself was oddly quiet as it was already under my control. Karuk! Karuk! As soon as any goblins found me, they ran away. There were many strangely strong monsters in the other zones that I challenged to test what I could do. But these monsters fled without hesitation. The same scene would likely play out on the next few floors, but I was focused on reaching the final boss room. What I sought waited for me there. Or at least I thought so. As soon as I arrived in front of the boss room on the first floor, the pocket watch I was holding flew out of my hand and was absorbed into the boss room door. At that moment, I could feel the boss beyond the door changing, transforming into a creepy thing similar to what I felt when I faced Lucifer. I felt a bit defeated. I thought I would be able to receive what I prepared in the past. But, upon reflection, this made sense. I knew better than anyone else that there was nothing to gain without suffering first. I was fine physically after my battle with Lucifer, but mentally I was fatigued. There was also the stress of the underground disappearing at any moment, which is why I had been hoping it would be easier. Pushing that thought aside, I let out a deep sigh and grabbed onto Annihilation. Ha! The huge iron gate shattered apart under Annihilation's power. Beyond the gate, the figure of a person awaited me. It was me. It was at the same time I was making plans to create the battlefield. I began to think. It had the exact same voice as me, the same face and body. He spoke in a calm but firm voice. Lucifer falls short of being my equal, my partner. The battlefield was the best plan I could achieve, but it was bound to fail. Certainly it did fail. Half of this mess stemmed from that fact. But it wasn't just Lucifer that was at fault. Because there was only one with the ability to do it, I was forced to entrust them, but I had to prepare for my next work when that one failed. This other me was like a broken robot, programmed to spit out everything contained inside of him and built to look just like me, aside from the black clothes he wore. If it is a plan that is obviously going to fail, you have to do it. But I wasn't sure if I could break the heavens. It wasn't enough to eat Lucifer. If only I had one more. I thought. Gradually, I began to see what I thought of in the past. After that, I started to see what I could use the battlefield for. Prepare it so I could eat Lucifer while readying myself to grow back from the ground up. Those were the two purposes of the battlefield. If that were the goal, I'd been greatly successful so far. I took the time I was allowed to take and contained the most intense greed and gluttony I had in it, sealing it in a pocket watch with 7 chains. Of course, it's not something that anyone can do, but the powers of gluttony and greed with the chain made it possible. I had a feeling this wouldn't end peacefully. If I had to entrust the underground to someone, it had to be me. I had a strong desire to live, and I won't die until I devour everything. That's why I believed I could do it. Wouldn't it be nice to be devoured by me? With all that has happened, I will go out to meet the heavens as the Lord of Gluttony. I have gained strength to surpass my prior self, so I will only continue to grow stronger. Either way, no matter who gets eaten, the distinction is meaningless. His words flowed like water, filling me with suspicion. It can't be. No matter how much time passes, there is no way I will lose to anyone other than myself. Enormous mana began to fill the space, and a smile caught on my lips. It was an energy I was intimately familiar with: predation. Whatever it is, please devour it. No matter how much I've changed, there is nothing more important than eating the prey before me. I am Baal, Lord of Gluttony. The battle began. The mana that was filling to space began to stick to me. Eat everything from head to toe. Be crushed and disappear. KHH. Knowing that there was no choice but to devour for this remnant before me, I also activated my powers to confront him. Our powers collided, pure mana without any gaps clashing and roaring. The obsidian walls of the 7th district absorbed the mana and began to glow, unworried by the shockwaves. Now I will gain everything back. All that I should have. KH. Even though I was prepared, my opponent's mana was too strong. It was stupid of me to think I surpassed the power I had in the past. Our mana wasn't too different. However, my opponent had the chance to refine their ability over the years. That difference in experience was against me. Blood. I love my own blood. I can't wait to drink it. Kahak. Blood gushed out from my body, bitten by the energy of predation. Sharp nails struck my throat, and I only barely avoided further damage through the goddess touch and salas. KH. You didn't have enough time. I expected that would be the case, so I preserved myself in the past. No matter how much I had recovered my memories, it would take years for that to reflect in my body. My fight with Lucifer and my evolution helped me grow, but that seemed arrogant now. In the past, I produced overwhelming results with less mana than I had now, but it was difficult to reverse the flow of battle. I have to finish this quickly. I have so much to do. To do? While I was berating myself for my own foolishness, another voice came to my ears. It wasn't a provocation, but rather had a casual tone to it, like a business checking his watch during lunch. You think you can replace me, who has struggled to survive until now? Fiery jealousy burned inside of me. To lose to this man who dared to look down on me from the past. And that was the only way I could defeat him. Greed and gluttony, the two powers I had in the past. But I was also jealous. Lucifer's power, yes. I expected as much. But can that alone fill the gap of years between us? No, there was one other way I was ahead of him. Mew! Salas, who was defending against his gluttony with me, supported me as I jumped through space to attack the other me. Only, it's insane to share power that is worth more together. Are you really me? I laughed at that. This was a trace of Baal, who embraced gluttony and greed. But now I knew he was wrong. Let's clean this up quickly. I'm tired. Mew! Salas let out a cry, containing the compressed and refined the power of Reaper inside me. Not even I could ignore that power, and my other self stretched out a hand to block it. That power would better serve me. The moment he clenched his fist, Salas disappeared without a trace. A smile so cool I could laugh played on his lips. With a movement reminiscent of my past self, imitated by the power of jealousy, I stretched out the power of predation and struck him with it. No, that would better serve me. His arm exploded brilliantly. Chapter 166. Black Moon 3. Black Moon 3. Huh? I succeeded in landing a blow this time. I laughed again as I embraced Salas, who appeared on my outstretched arm. Do you still think that way? Mew. Salas's appearance was a little different now. In the process of being devoured, part of his body was lost. He used his power to eat at him from the inside, recovering what he had lost. Now he seemed stronger than before. The spider's power oppresses me? You don't have the power of jealousy, right? This guy has it. How many times have I not eaten what I wanted? This has become fun. The other me leaned into position, a sword made of black mana in his hand. The power he exuded began to change at that moment, converging into one sharp line with the sword. I will surely devour you. Who can say if that's true? His desire was increasing, the energy of his gluttony increasing in density. It seemed like there was no end to that magic. But it was no different for me. As his power increased, so too did my jealousy. It wasn't hard for me to copy his power since I already had the same one. Annoying! His sword cleaved down. I knew because I, too, was him how miraculous the trajectory drawn by that sword was. How great the power it held was. My sword drew the same trajectory in the same. Sword and mana clashed in the center, causing a roar that threatened to collapse the dungeon. But it was the other me who was pushed back this time. Fuck! My arm! It won't be that easy. I had to get back this formidable power I lost. I had to transcend the past to forge the future. You can't make me lose my power like Lucifer. This is my power. The power of Baal. Another violent crash resounded throughout the dungeon. Salas rushed into the gaps I created to tear at his flesh. Predation clashed with predation, causing a terrible explosion. Cock! KHH! Each time I hurt my foe, and he hurt me, my jealousy was aroused. Mana rising without end restored me and strengthened me. With this unacceptable enemy before me, I was the master of jealousy. Yes, this is how I am. The evil lord couldn't be otherwise. I won't make any concessions, either. Your heart is nowhere near as strong as the one I have now. Let's put it to the test, then. I could only guess what kind of thoughts I had in the past and what kind of heart I had. But my heart wasn't as strong. Stupid. Just as I had no idea what happened to him in the past, he had no way of knowing the struggles I went through. It's getting stronger. You, as the king, should know that jealousy is a sin that stands shoulder to shoulder with gluttony. There's no way I would use such a foolish power. Would you deny yourself, Baal? My strength was elevated beyond a realm that I never reached in the past. My body, my swordsmanship, and my mana were boiling. It was only natural. The stronger the enemy, the stronger the jealousy. Against the demon lord, I was experiencing rapid growth. I wondered if it would be the last before I reached the sky above me. Ha! Jealousy? Is that jealousy? Are you so envious of my sword, of my mana, of me? The more pathetic I feel, the more jealous I feel of myself who was perfect in the past. I don't care about the time that has passed. I can't stand the anger rising inside me. The explosions caused by mana colliding with mana rattled out like machine gun fire. Our skins tore up and regenerated as our muscles cried out for more mana. Lucifer couldn't handle jealousy properly. Even his pride was incomplete. I was wrong. Since I'm also Baal, I know the mistakes we've made. We're not so smart, are we? But in the end, we always ate everything to survive. I've always had to engorge myself to survive and protect what I love. I surrendered myself to desire and managed to survive somehow. Now I stand here. So do I. The speed at which I swung my dagger gradually increased to catch up with that sinister black mana sword. I had to be even faster and sharper. It's unpleasant to think that I was a teacher for you. I'll have to take even more. I'm just taking back what was originally mine. How funny. If there is something you can eat in front of me, you should devour it. Yes, that is the core of me. I am Baal. No, I am Baal. I didn't care that I could feel myself reaching my limit from the elevating mana in my body, causing me to creak as I moved. I needed more mana, more power. The moment my limit was reached, my body began to shine, changed by the power. The powers of jealousy, gluttony, and greed assimilated into me, emitting a violent wave. There was no other demon who had 3 powers at once before. Once there was a man who had 2, but he was crushed by his own powers, just like Lucifer and countless before him. But I was different. If there was anything I needed to eat in front of me, anything I should have, anyone who was stronger than me, I would devour it all. Hey! I carved my way through the air, matching his movements. At the end of my path was his abdomen. Kahak! The dagger of absolute death stuck into him. His sword tried to cut my throat at the same time, but Salas bit into it and swallowed it before it could cut me. It was thanks to the fact we shared the same consciousness that it was possible. However, he didn't care that his attack had failed. He only looked down at the dagger sticking out of him. This weapon, its existence is a miracle. Isn't it? I licked the blood off my fingers, the taste of it almost unbearably sweet. But heaven can't do that. Even if Michael doesn't know. I know, so don't worry. No, it doesn't matter either way. He stretched his arms out with a smile, admitting the game was over. If you devour me, you'll know. I activated the energy of predation. The Baal of the past closed his eyes. I can win now. I can eat it now. Agreeing with him quietly, I devoured him whole. Thank you for this meal. A violent explosion of energy occurred. The power of the past that had been sealed was absorbed into me, digested by the power of predation. My mind was shattered as countless pieces of information were mixed and organized together. I could feel my powers growing, changing dramatically. Your level has risen several times. Magic increased by 857. The moment I could feel the change had finished, I slowly opened my eyes and examined myself. The clothes I was wearing changed. Now I was cloaked in the same black attire that my past self was wearing. The Evil Lord, / Defense? Boosts magic power. Only, it wasn't that the status couldn't be read, but rather it had an ability that couldn't be recorded as a status in the first place. It had a power inexpressible with numbers, one I could only vaguely feel in wearing it. Now I have what I need. Now that I defeated the true boss of Area 7, the black place was absorbed into the underground. I grabbed onto my past and was now reborn as the complete Baal, able to fully grasp all the work and power I had achieved in the past. The stat of destiny was now to be revealed to me with this new rebirth. Destiny stats have been released. All 7 areas of the Black Palace have been gathered. Construction of the Tower of Destiny has begun. Subsequently, a notification window appeared, ruining the mood. Collect gold coins to complete the tower. Perhaps I should see Belphegor. Chapter 167. Black Moon 4. Black Moon 4. To protect the underground, I would need to complete the Tower of Destiny. But to complete it, I needed gold. Gold? It was clear where I would need to go for that. Belphegor and all that gold he had taken from me. Gold coins were one of the most common things to be found. Monsters, humans, demons, and angels would leave gold coins when they died without fail. They were used as a currency, of course, but also a valuable material needed for creating objects, whether they be artifacts or magical architecture. After calculating the amount I would need to complete the tower, I ground my teeth and returned to the underground. Fate! Fate! Captain! Brother! Mireina stood atop the highest spire, spreading her shield outward as all the high-ranking demons struggled around her to add mana to the shield. They were aided by the members of Rebellion. It almost looked like a cult gathering around their priestess. How much longer do you think you can hold it up? 30 minutes at most. I had been hoping for an hour and a half. I asked for 3 hours. But, on my own. No, you can. Mireina was weakening, but when she saw my eyes didn't shake, her face changed quickly. After reaffirming my belief in her, she began to emit more mana than before. Yes, yes, I can do it. It's an ability that can't even be used properly without fate. Belphegor muttered as if the sight was pathetic, but I was fortunate to arrive in time to replenish her energy. Rain, I need your money. I will. It was for you from the start. Until now, I thought he was some hustler robbing me of my money, but he had been doing it to save all of our lives. Poor Belphegor. Go give up your strength, Rain. The demons murmured sympathetically at him. Belphegor produced all the gold he had collected so far, a staggering amount that I was a bit flabbergasted to see. Don't look so sad. Give it all to me. You know how precious gold is to demons, Fate. Gremory, who had one hand outstretched to Mireina to pour magic into her, screamed at me. I replied with a kind smile. Then, choose what's more precious between gold and your life. I respect your thoughts. You're so cool even when you're being mean to me. I took all the gold that every demon had before silently turning to the members of rebellion. Li Chanyu was already taking out his money, and the rest couldn't go against the atmosphere. Why are you borrowing as soon as you see us, brother? You'll see soon. But even that wasn't enough yet. At best, we had about 50%. I have to go to Earth and take money from humans now. Even though you robbed all the riches the demons had, it's not enough? What the hell are you making? Are you building a weapon to destroy the heavens? The other demons yelled at Gremory, who was yelling at me. She seemed to be a bit resentful that her money had been stolen. But the underground would be destroyed if they didn't, so they had to go along with it. Something like that. I looked beyond the spire and pointed to the inner courtyard. The gold coins I collected were immediately converted into mana to start constructing the Tower of Destiny. The Black Palace referred to the palace I resided in previously. However, after becoming a human, it became impossible to maintain it, so I sealed it away. Now, it was taking shape due to the gold coins I had collected. A tower built out of black obsidian was already rising steeply above the demon castle. What are you trying to build with that money? Great King, why? Most of the demons were astonished as they looked up at the tower, which wasn't even 10% complete yet. However, only one man didn't seem impressed watching it. It's an accurate name, the Tower of Destiny. He smiled bitterly as he said that. There were times when I was puzzled by the role assigned to Belphegor, but I see it wasn't because of a desire for wealth. It was for this. I wondered about my own greed and that of my past self, to take everything we could. But, from the beginning, I didn't get too greedy for things that didn't arouse my appetite, like things like gold. If you had been greedy and collected more, perhaps. You are correct. No, Amimon. How long it has been since I heard that name. You got everything back. You'll know when you see it. Some of the demons listening to us stepped back, muttering amongst themselves now they knew who he was. No way, he was alive? Didn't fate eat him in the past? That's right, huh? Amimon, or Mammon, was the great demon who surrendered greed to me in the past. No. Instead of surrendering, he was forced to give it away after he lost in a game. I didn't intend to owe him any more, but now it couldn't be helped. We both had something to keep safe. Please. Ha! With a snort, a black shade erupted behind his back. Soon, a cartoonishly large pile of gold had appeared behind me. Take as much as you want. I'll take at least 90% of it. His eyebrows flinched. Perhaps he didn't know I would take so much of the wealth he accumulated by defeating hordes of monsters. It was enough to match 50% of the gold I had taken from the other demons. Fate is even taking from Amimon. It's just like our king. The demons were quite relaxed, even though we could all die soon. Well, that was only to be expected from beings called demons. Complete it quickly. Thanks to you, it's coming along nicely. I wasn't wrong in saying I needed 90%. I poured all the money collected from Amimon into the tower without leaving a single coin behind. The tower began to soar into the sky above us. Tower of Babel? My younger sister muttered blankly while looking at it. The Tower of Babel, built by arrogant humans, ignoring God's will and tried to reach him. God scattered their languages to prevent the construction of the tower. In the end, they couldn't complete it and abandoned it. I laughed at my sister's words and denied her. I'm not trying to replicate such a human failure. Was it really a failure? Many others opened their eyes wide at the mention of the tower. Apparently, there were common myths between Hater and Earth. It's a tower. It's finally going up, Gremory said while watching the tower soar without end under the black moon above. A collection of false wills from the distant past of heaven. Heaven was the largest cause of the great fusion and the master of that loud voice that instigated the demons when the devil's night arrived. No way. Aren't you too gluttonous? Knowing my intentions and the power of the tower, the demons stopped talking. I gazed up at it. Fate. Just as I tried to move towards it, a voice held me from behind. Release me. Her eyes opened wide, but she soon nodded with a warm smile. All right. Do you want me to call your name? No. I was angry because you were flirting with another woman. She seemed to be referring to Mireina and my sister. I smiled at her cute little grievances and then approached her for a kiss. We can do the rest after I get back. I'll be waiting. The woman who monopolized the love of almost every demon in the past. The only woman I wanted to protect who stayed by my side. The #1 contributor who made Amimon concede to my strength, and perhaps even made me the Demon King. She released me, and I waved at her before approaching the tower. Now it was time to devour that black moon. Chapter 168. Black Moon 5. Black Moon 5. A lot of materials were required to complete the Tower of Destiny. First was conquering the Black Palace's 7 areas, where the other demons and I had stayed in the past. That was the main step in starting the construction. The next was Destiny or Fate, a status that had been born from the luck stat. It had been gathering and growing from the start, waiting for the seal to release itself. It was something I could be sure would work, and I had to risk the lives of everyone in the face of uncertainty, so the name of it was bound to be Destiny. Then all that was left was the gold that I barely gathered by shaking down all the demons. The Tower of Destiny wasn't just ludicrously tall. It was like a huge artifact. It resonated with me and gradually increased my power. It was an extraordinarily complex magical artifact, achieved through all of our gold. It was fortunate that we were able to build it. The tower was still rising, but I was already heading up. It would have been nice to wait for it to finish first, but I had to go all the way from the first floor to the top. I had no time to waste. Shall we go? The enormous plan I dreamed up before the Great Fusion was beginning to materialize into reality. Of course, the situation wasn't one where I could sit back and enjoy the fruits of my labors. Failure would, as always, result in death. This was a desperate moment, but a smile was playing on my lips. It felt like the day I first went to a high-end restaurant to commemorate my graduation from high school. What would I eat and how much? What will it taste like? I had similar thoughts in my mind now, an appetite worthy of the name Baal coursing through me. From the first floor all the way to the top. This huge tower was like a booster for me, and the more I went up, the more I could feel it supporting me. The power of the first floor overlapped with the power of the second, and so on. It kept superimposing over me, raising my strength by several dozen times, at least. It was easy enough to put it into words, but I could feel the tremendous amount of time, money, and devotion that had been put into realizing it. I grappled with those feelings as I ran upward, feeling the tower resonating with my own heartbeat. 17th, 39th, 76th, 119th. The floors ran by as I sprinted with all my might. I hadn't designed any windows when I made the tower so that I couldn't see outside. I just calculated the floor I was on by my growing power and the power of the black moon drawing closer. The higher I climbed, the greater the burden on my body was. The pressure tormented me as my magic grew at an absurd pace. The 100th floor was bearable, but from the 200 onwards, I could feel my movement slowing down. In this situation, where I had no idea how long Mireina could hold out, I needed to be speeding up. I clenched my jaw. Any power that I could use now was raised to a limit that I struggled to manage, but I kept climbing anyway. Shame drove me as I was filled with the idea that there was another me that would accept the pain and push forward. 250th, 320th, 400th. Mana welled up in me so intensely that I couldn't see well in front of me. It threatened to crush me from within, made me want to break the tower, and run away as waves of pain filled me. How's that? If it was pain, I was used to it. Even in the days where I struggled to ascend to the position of the Demon King, there were plenty of times where my body was damaged or even destroyed. The pain wouldn't have any effect on me. As long as I could move forward, it didn't matter if I was blind or my spine was crushed, or if my organs were bursting and my legs were broken. This was all my mana. My colleagues pushed me to go further so I could eat all I wanted. With that thought, even this endless pain brought me joy. This pain would bring me the sweetest nectar of heaven. Whenever the pain surged, I focused on the image in my mind. That distorted black moon, the heavenly celestial enemy before me, and my burning anger toward it. It was a lump of imperious and disgusting will that blocked my path, harassed Lilith, and judged those below it. it would only be the start. After I devoured it, I would go on to the main dish that was heaven. Protect the underground and swallow up heaven. With those two distinct goals, I stepped forward. I was no longer sure how much time had passed. I was only certain that Mireina was still holding on. 570th, 610th, 644th. The moment I crossed the 600th floor, the intensity of the buff increased. It felt like my magic was amplified by 10% for each floor I went up. It only kept increasing exponentially, both my power and the weight I had to bear. I couldn't tell if I was walking, running, or crawling up the tower. All my thoughts were gone. I merely endured the weight and moved forward as I focused all my attention on controlling my mana. 650, 654, 657. At some point, cold air had begun to run all over my body. I wondered if it was a side effect of the mana, but I decided it couldn't be. The cold was coming from somewhere else. An entity full of sharp and cold hostility. It was the Black Moon, my enemy, that was drawing closer, which meant the end of the tower wasn't so far away. With that realization, my eyes opened wide. As the meal I craved drew near, the energy of predation became more active, eating away at the enormously dense mana that weighed on my body in preparation for the meal. My body was growing lighter, overflowing with a power I couldn't believe. All that mana that was trying to crush me fused with the energy of gluttony, amplifying its tremendous momentum to cause me to rise above. 660, 661, 662. The world's largest booster was giving me all its mana. The energy of gluttony, powered by that mana, had taken a recognizable form. At a glance, I could tell it was a wolf's jaw, that of Fenrir, the world-devouring wolf in Norse mythology. 663, 664, 665. The higher I climbed, the stronger that power became. It swallowed up the cold air that tried to reject me, strengthening me even further. The moment I reached the 666th floor, the sky was above me. The Black Moon was huge above me, gazing down at me from below. Only, swallow everything. Deny the one who stands next to you and stab the one behind you. Be alone, shining under the moon. The voice tried to deny everything but itself. Its influence had grown so much. It's huge. The words left me unbidden as I stared in awe of that sphere of power before me. I had walked up to the 666th floor, and now I was so close to the moon. I had succeeded in confronting it with my own strength. But it wasn't my strength alone. I was backed by the power of all the demons and the members of rebellion. Without even one of them, I wouldn't be standing here. Well, maybe it would be fine if Katsuragi didn't exist. Dominate. Destroy all things above you and reign over all. Yes, that's what you mean. I've already been doing that. A huge connection of will and power, formed by the will of heaven. Thank you. This is why you're the perfect appetizer. The burden I felt climbing the tower was relieved for a moment. With the chunk of mana dangling before me, I began to raise up the energy of gluttony. The wolf opened its jaws, proceeding confidently towards the Black Moon before me. Was it just an illusion that I felt it tremble for a moment? The pressure I felt disappeared without a trace. The mana I had accumulated was pouring into the energy of gluttony as it rushed towards the Black Moon. Thank you for this meal. Chapter 169. Black Moon 6. Black Moon 6. Rain. 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 The Black Moon rebelled against me, pouring out evil thoughts onto me. But I was already standing at the top of the underground. If I wanted to go further, I had to trample over it and climb on top. Why keep fighting? Rain. 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 This is why heaven tried to strike at me. They sensed that the Demon King, filled with gluttony and greed, wouldn't be satisfied with just crawling on the earth. He would raise his head to the sky. Heaven reacted fiercely to the creature's coup, working hard to trample over our lives, emotions, and wills. The world had collapsed, my past and future ruined. All that was left for me was the body of a goblin and the hidden anger of lost desires that led me here. To correct everything. The moment I faced the Black Moon, I was convinced. If I wanted to rise up there, I would have to devour it first. Rain! Rain! The wolf's wide-open jaws began to gnaw at the black moon. Each time a hole was torn into it, and each time it diminished little by little, a shock rocked my body. No matter how much I regained, compared to the black moon that was a part of the heavens, the difference was too great. Despite building the Tower of Destiny to overcome it, the shock was still transmitted. I felt pathetic, thinking I tasted the most extreme of pain before. I was still just a frog struggling at the bottom of a well, unaware of the strength of those above me. But, in such a pathetic manner I had survived so far. Goblins, wolves, trolls, spiders, ogres, elves, angels, Lucifers. I ate all those struggling beside me and stood on top of them all. I had designed this tower with the purpose of survival and attracted all those below me to the underground. Was I really going to kneel down to the pain now? Rain! 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 Shut up! Shut up! Resonating with my yelling, the tower vibrated violently, and the wolf shaped by gluttony swelled in size. A huge hole was torn through the moon. The evil will that echoed in my head was lifted, replaced by a scream of pure agony. Was this guy just like my other prey after all? Ash! It was the scream of a child being burned for the first time. It reverberated all around me, fueling my burning appetite. The wolf ran wild, taking larger and larger bites. The number of holes in the moon gradually increased. Without leaving a single crumb, I will devour all of you. The rain that the black moon wanted so much, I would achieve it. So long as there was something above me, I wouldn't be the ruler. Just because I could eat things that were weaker than me didn't mean I could rule. I had to eat all things stronger than me and reach the highest point I could so that no one could oppress me. You are fate, the cursed one. The one who craves endlessly, deviating from reason. Now will you finally face me? Was this the fragment of the celestial will left inside the black moon? Or were they directly connected? It didn't matter. Your endless greed will bring ruin. All reason and providence will be shattered, leading you and everything around you to death. You've already been doing that. I endured the pain and ground my teeth. This was a truly shameless guy. But it will be different from now on. Everything will change. Will you drag everything else down with you? All that awaits at the end is nothing more than destruction. That's no different than the world we're experiencing so far. The wolf roared fiercely, rage filling it as it ran right into the middle of the moon, drilling a hole into it and silencing the moon for a moment. It was a critical hit. Ha. I was the one to groan, however, filled with too much mana. The mana surge struck me with more force than the mana I collected when fighting Lucifer, threatening to disperse my soul. I desperately grabbed onto it. Groea! The wolf didn't stop, swallowing up the black moon more ferociously. The pain swelled as the mana increased, my body twisting in the air like a marionette as I tried to accept the energy into my body. The primal feelings of greed, jealousy, and wrath remained where the pain led me to. The tower below me vibrated violently as if it would collapse at any moment. It endured, however, keeping me up. Fall, what to do? When I looked up, there was only the dark underground sky before me. The black moon was nowhere to be found, completely consumed by me. The wolf lost its strength, having completed its mission, and scattered into the air. Once more, a huge shock rocked me as the power that made up the moon was completely absorbed into me. Kuha. I couldn't tell if it was a laugh or a moan that left me. Despite the pain, I was filled with joy at finally succeeding in confronting my heavenly foe. How could I be happy? The pain still raged inside of me, indicating I was growing as the mana filled me. It wasn't an amount I could handle with my current body, which meant either it would kill me or forge a new body that could handle it. That was evolution. The thought of the former was funny to me. Dying because I couldn't handle what I ate? I was an Baal, the Lord of Gluttony. Ha. I could sense it, the power that had been hiding deep inside of me. I had met the qualifications to earn it. You now stand at the top of the underground. Evolution is now possible. Should I refuse? Feeling the huge flow of mana inside me, I affirmed its will. I was willing to step into an unknown realm that no one had reached. I thought that the mana I had inside me was enough, but more mana flowed into me from everywhere. The mana that composed the underground, which was still sealed, burst into the air and rotated around me with the wrathful mana of the black moon. My body was torn away instantly by the resulting explosion, leaving only my will and my mana in its place. Only, the tower vibrated, synchronizing with that flow of mana. It couldn't even be compared to the black moon now, slowly gathering in the place where I was to form me. The mana mixed chaotically without distinction before forming a distinct shape. Greed, gluttony, and jealousy found their territory and began to take root. Even after engorging myself, I still hungered for more. However, those weren't the powers that took up the most mana. In becoming the true king, a new power awakened. My new body was built around the power of wrath, the wrath that symbolized the ruler of the underground. A body optimized for the release of magic was created. Blood formed of mana, muscles full of destructive power, hard bones, and a skin that couldn't be cut by anything. The wings of Jinma materialized from my shoulders, and sharp horns of compressed mana appeared out of my head. The mana that made up my new body was too dense to be called a demon's mana. It was the mana of a king. Who? I let out a laugh as I opened my eyes to examine my new body. I almost resembled a devil from a cartoon, although my skin was paler and softer than any human's. I now stood atop the underground. You became the demon king, Satan. You have gained wrath. A notification window popped up as if responding to my feelings. I could feel the power of wrath flowing through me. I reject the great fusion. It was a declaration that marked the beginning of our war against heaven. Chapter 170. Heavenly Conquest 1. Heavenly Conquest 1. Baal, Fate. Satan, Magic, 48,019. Wrath, Predation, Greed, Jealousy. I let out a sigh while looking at the unassuming status window. The name Satan had taken the spot where my race and level should be, and my skills such as Domination, Reaper, and Magic had disappeared. Of course, the levels vanished at will. My magic also grew 7 times over, which was a staggering amount. It made sense, of course. All of it. For someone who only grew stronger by killing creatures that were more powerful than me, I needed none of that. All I needed was to continue to evolve as I devoured the strong, and I had no intention of stopping with the moon. Wow, it looks like it worked. The sky underground was already changing, perhaps because I had reclaimed the title of the Demon King. The remnant of heaven that gathered to become that black moon was now gone. With this, that will be swept away by the great fusion and disappear in vain. What I had done was something similar to what Lucifer aimed for, although the comparison annoyed me. It was just a natural outcome of reaching the level of a king and taking control of the world. It was possible because the title the demons bestowed wasn't a light one, but rather it was one that the world itself recognized. It was an odd, mystical feeling as the tower and the entire world of the underground resonated with me. I could feel all areas that resided down here, now bowing to my control. I could feel the places that were still hiding from me, evening finding the villages of the dwarves that were still underground. The uncontrolled flow of mana filling the underground cleared up, and all areas that were sealed off until now were incorporated into my realm. I glanced down over my realm, even more complete than it had been before the great fusion. You will regret it. I heard a faint voice, that of a young woman's. It was much different than the man's voice that the black moon spoke in, but I knew instinctively it was connected to heaven. You guys will be the one to regret it, I replied sarcastically. The underground's connection to heaven was shattering, so I wouldn't be able to hear them anymore. With no small amount of gratitude for that fact, I slowly descended to the ground. The Tower of Destiny stood dignified above all else as I descended. For the first time, I grasped how far up I had truly gone. It's a miracle I was on time. With a bitter smile, I reached the castle's spire roughly around the second floor of the tower where all the demons were gathered. including Lilith and the exhausted figure of Mireina. Wow! Gazing up at me, Mireina let out a small gasp. I was openly in the form of a devil, and I reached up to touch the horns on my forehead. All gathered around me were filled with tension and excitement as they waited for me to speak. Although everyone already knows, Mireina's shield was no longer being maintained. I wasn't sure if it was because the magic was released naturally after they reached their limits, or if it was cancelled because they could sense it was no longer needed, but I suppose that didn't matter. What did it prove? That it wasn't being maintained anymore? Rejoice! The underground is now completely free from the effects of the Great Fusion. There was silence for a truly short moment before the demons cheered loudly. I raised my hands awkwardly above my head in front of them all. We did it! We did it! Satan! The underground is returning back to its original shape. It's all under fate's control now. I can't feel heaven anymore. The black moon is gone. The cheers of the demons contained their hopes held over the years, born from their desperate battle against heaven's machinations. Ooh, fate did well. It was so beautiful. Katsuragi, shut up. Captain succeeded in defending the underground. Don't you understand that much since we were together from the beginning? Lee Chanyu, you're quick to understand. From the beginning. Have we really been together that long? Not you. No, not that. My eyes caught my sister as she muttered calmly. The demons were smiling wide enough to split, but in her face, I could feel the years I knew nothing about, the traces of a long time that I couldn't hide from her. I would have to explain someday, but now wasn't the time. We still had work to do, and I had no intention of confusing her further. Before I could think about it any longer, a woman I couldn't ignore grabbed onto me. Fate. You can call me Satan now. I hate that name because it has no feeling. Lilith cut down my proud words as she held on to me. She was covered in a sheen of sweet-smelling sweat, having worked quite hard supporting Mireina's shield. Thank you, Fate. You kept your promise. No, not yet. But the underground is out of heaven's grasp. She tilted her head in my arms. Before I could respond, Amimon stepped up from nearby, staring at us. It's impossible to escape from heaven. At best, we've just prevented them from directly interfering with us. More or less, yeah. How is that different? Some of the surrounding demons had a similar expression of confusion. It's like we've moved from being subordinate to an equal relationship. Belphegor handily offered an easy-to-understand explanation. With that, it sounded as if the air was being torn apart with the sound of ripping paper. Slowly, a woman appeared through a hole torn into the fabric of the world. She wore glowing blue armor that hid her entire body, and she had a beautiful face that shone brilliantly. Several white feathered wings protruded through the back of her armor. An ominous red flag was held in her hand. I am Gabriel. I have arrived to convey the will of heaven. The woman threw the flag in her hand straight at me. Catching it, I could see the number 13 written on it. There was no way I couldn't know what it meant. You're going to attack in 13 days? Oh, arrogant traitor who has violated the strong will of heaven. Lower your head lest we cut it off along with your soul. I crushed the flag in my hand. It contained heavenly power and tried to reject me, but it was possible to erase it without a trace. It was funny to see Gabriel's face openly twitching at sight. A deep laugh left me. It must have been hard for you to get out. Have you brought an offering with you? In order to fulfill the will of the heavens, I had to take only a little mana from other creatures. Ha! She regarded me grimly as I laughed, but she showed no hostility. She seemed to be faithful to her role as a messenger, but it disgusted me to see her pretend to be so noble. After 13 days, heaven shall open up the underground and punish it. It is too late. We shall erase everything and return to the other world. I shall leave now that you understand. The moment Gabriel turned her back to me, I moved lightly. The hole in the air disappeared as if it was washed away. She attempted to bore another hole through the world, but it closed automatically. What does this mean? She responded firmly, a long golden wand now in her hand. She was aware that I blocked her exit. The war started long ago. Do you really think I would let you tell me that and then just go back? I am the only angel who is down here right now. Do you know what that means? It means that all of the divine powers are focused on me right now. Satan, do you wish to end your existence so easily? If concentrating their power was so easy, they wouldn't have to wait 13 days, right? I smiled. Who was she trying to deceive? You silly, vulgar. Lilith and the others popped up around me, ready to back me up. Only, this one's mine. Fate, I want to evolve too. Can I eat that? Yeah. As Lilith and Gremory bickered, I picked up Annihilation. From the moment I defeated Lucifer, it began to resonate fiercely with me. Now that I had reached the title of Satan, I could feel it had reached a completely different realm. No, that's my meal. To treat the will of heaven as food is unacceptable. I shall punish you myself. Gabriel charged straight towards me, but I used my magic to slow her down to the speed of a turtle. I gazed upward and decided to call out to the demon who had been with me all along. Halpa, the crow that beckons death. Now is the time to stand by my side once more. The loyal subordinate who built this castle. The demon who defended his strong will and became a sword. A dazzling light filled the castle in response to my call. Ha! I rushed in a straight line towards Gabriel, who was trying to resist my magic. Even faster than she could open her eyes, Annihilation descended upon her. We've reached the end of today's episode. Thank you for traversing the boundless landscapes of fantasy with us. If today's story has sparked joy within you, please remember to hit the like button, share our journey with others, and subscribe to Lord of the Stories for an ever-expanding collection of mystical escapades. Until we meet again to turn the page to a new adventure, hold the tales dear in your heart and let the embers of magic warmly glow in your spirit. Farewell, intrepid explorers of the narrative unknown.